Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marc, and joining me as always, Gene Hackman's former head of personal security. Not a good week for you. My brother Mike.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
Too soon.
A legend passes and you're just waiting to crack wise about it here.
I'm the type of person who wants to be first out of the gate. I want to be first out of the gate with any dark humor. That's me. I'm that guy.
Yeah. You and I and a good friend of ours, Matt, were talking about this. I don't often get intrigued by celebrity things, but I'm all in on this story. I'm like,
well, here's the thing.
What?
There's going to be a documentary out about this like tomorrow. Like
exactly.
That's how quickly they turn around these documentaries now. Like there'll be 16 documentaries out in the next month or so. A couple out tomorrow. It'll be a thing. You know.
Well, R.I.P. to a legend in Gene Hackman.
R.I.P. to a legend in Gene Hackman. We'll miss you. We'll watch some Hoosiers for you just in your memory. All right. On this week's episode of Royals Weekly, we're going to look back at a week of Cactus League action a little bit. Not like dig into specific games and stuff, but we're going to have our normal format back where we talk about like strong performers, weak performers, and so on and so forth. And so we'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll discuss a few guys whose days might be numbered with the Kansas City Royals. We're talking about guys who sort of have been around, have had a few chances, but maybe haven't come through yet, and how they might be valuable to the team still as trade or something like that, right? And then we'll discuss what we're looking forward to in the next week of Cactus League play. Mike, that's the last couple of questions that I added that you need to go take a look at because, I'm pretty sure you haven't thought about those yet. So while he's doing that, I'm going to tell you why you should subscribe to our Royals Weekly Substack. If you're like, hey, I want more than one episode a week. Well, guess what? We're putting out at least another episode a week for our paid Royals Weekly Substack subscribers. It comes out every Thursday. Mike is planning to put out an episode every Friday when the regular season starts. So if you want, for just $5 a month, you can get an extra 2 episodes every week from us, right? Which is dope. Plus, we come out with one piece of written content every Sunday that I write. Let's see, this week I talked a little bit about the 5th starter battle, and then I talked about people who are battling for the last roster spot or 2, a couple of bench spots. And so, a lot of good written content. That'll pick up once school gets out and Mike and I can spend a little more time writing. So $5 a month gets you a ton of extra content, ton of extra episodes. We're putting out a lot of stuff on our Royals Weekly Substack. Go to Royals Weekly Substack or royalsweekly.substack.com. Find a subscription, take a look at the place, you see what you like, and go ahead and subscribe to that if you'd like some additional content from the Royals Weekly crew here. I also need to tell you that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, and they got everything over there. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more. For every game, every play, and every win, BetOnline, the game starts here. We always start our review of last week with roster news, but kind of fortunately, I guess, there is no roster news because roster news is usually injury related, and we don't want any injuries during spring training. So we don't really have any significant roster news. We're going to keep our ears perked up because sometimes you see trades and things and some small signings happen during spring training. I would anticipate the Royals being a part of at least some sort of transactions before now and the end of spring training to try and shore up that 26-man roster, but we'll see on that front. We'll let you know every week whether or not we have any roster news. On the field, the Royals went 2-4-1 this week in Cactus League play. That brings their overall record to 5-4 in the Cactus League. Not as sterling as they looked last week at this time.
Where they must be 5-4-1, I would imagine.
Oh, yep, 5-4-1. Sorry. On the standings, it just says 5-4 for some reason, I think, but maybe they don't think about ties. It doesn't really matter. It's Cactus League. Who cares? But yes, 5-4-1. The Royals went on a bit of a losing streak this week in spring training. They dropped 4 games in a row against the Rockies, Brewers, Diamondbacks, and Cubs. Of course, the wins and losses don't matter. This is the Cactus League. Who gives a shit? But Mike, how do you feel about the team played this week?
Well, a few of the hitters have struggled that I was hoping. I guess it's been inconsistent somewhat. We'll put up 15 runs. We'll put up 1 run, kind of back-to-back days. And so there has been some inconsistency with the hitters. Even today, we scored 10. But if you watched that game, you wouldn't go, boy, Royals bats were blasting the ball. It was a lot of, soft singles in those first couple innings, moving guys. Now, it was a lot of soft singles. We hit a lot of them, and that's good. You'll take those all day. But I'm still waiting to see some really good things offensively from several people. Although there have been a couple of guys like Jonathan India who I've been really impressed with. We talked about Nick Lofton in our last one, so some positive things offensively. A few of the pitchers have struggled as well, especially some of those more marquee starting guys that we know are locks. Reagans has struggled once. Lugo's struggled maybe a couple times. He hasn't been exactly. Although today, Lugo gives up a few runs, but I actually thought he threw pretty well. And so, yeah, just tightening some things up. I'm not worried about anything. One positive, and they mentioned this today in the broadcast very quickly, the Royals are second in MLB in on-base percentage right now.
During
And we
spring
talked
training.
during spring training. And you and I talked a lot about how part of the reason that their offense couldn't stay more consistent last year, even before the Pasquantino injury, was that they didn't have guys who are willing to take a walk to get on base to kind of keep innings going. And I'm excited if they can keep that on base percentage in the top, 8 this year would be fantastic.
That would be a revelation for the
Mm-hmm.
Royals. And
Yes, it
I
would.
think you're seeing that come from a few different guys. Kevin Biggio is obviously very capable of drawing a walk, and he's had a lot of plate appearances. We talked about Nick Lofton taking walks. I think Bobby Witt Jr. has taken a few more walks during spring training. I'm
Jonathan
going to talk
India
about him a
too.
little bit. Jonathan India was brought in essentially to take walks ahead of Bobby Witt Jr. And so I've seen MJ Melendez take quite a few walks. Like there are some hitters who are going to be key parts of this lineup who are now capable of taking walks and getting on base. And that on base ability just really sets up nicely for your guys like Bobby Witt Jr., for Vinny Pasquantino, and for Salvador Perez. I mean, this whole offense is geared around creating RBI opportunities for those three hitters, and maybe Michael Massey a little bit as well. Although I saw him take a walk again today. He's taken a few walks this spring training as well. And so, you know, those sorts of things are an increased OBP is really what's going to be the fuel that takes this offense to the next level. And if they can continue that into the regular season, that'll be a huge point in their favor, I think. As far as what I've seen this last week, I've seen a few missed opportunities offensively because they've had a lot of traffic on the bases at times when you were like, oh, wow, they had the bases loaded, nobody out there in the first, and they only got one run. Like that happened today. Today they had a bunch of traffic in the first, but a double play from Harold Castro meant they only got one run in that inning. And I was like, oh, that's a little bit disappointing. That's happened a couple times this last week. And so that's actually in some way good news because, one, some of the people not coming through are guys who probably aren't going to be on the team. But also, like, if you're getting guys on base and you're creating those opportunities, eventually those runs will come in. Eventually you'll get the big hit. Eventually you'll string a couple hits together, and all of a sudden you've scored 4 runs in an inning instead of just one, right? Like, so the fact that they're getting on base, the fact that they're creating offensive opportunities, I think is hugely important. It's a huge indicator that the offense looks like it will be even better than it was last year. And while we look at the offense at the end of the year and say, wow, it just was not enough. It was pretty bad at the end of the year. And for the first 5 months of the season, it was actually pretty good. It was a top 5 offense in terms of runs scored. And so if they can sort of combine this new on base ability with the same sort of situational hitting that they got last year, with the talent that they have in the middle of the lineup, I think that could spell some success for this offense. Mike, on the field last week, who do you think stood out as a particularly strong performer?
Well, I mentioned him earlier, and he didn't just impress me this past week, but has all spring training, and that's Jonathan India. Now, still questions on whether how he's gonna do in a corner outfield and left if they choose to play him there. But he went 3 for 8 with a double, an RBI, a walk, and a strikeout this week, along with some good base running stuff. And then last week it was a similar story, and so when we made that trade, I figured, okay, well, India's going to take the walks. He's going to do that. But I've been really impressed with his ability to put bat to ball so far. And that's something I think is going to be really important when you've got Kauffman Stadium and you've got Bobby Witt Jr. hitting behind you. And so really impressed with Jonathan India. Hope they can find a consistent, solid spot for him defensively. And I'll tell you, even if you can get one of these corner guys to show something, an MJ Melendez, maybe if they're willing to go with a Tyler Gentry, or maybe if it's maybe even Garcia playing in an outfield spot or something, and India can go somewhere else and play defensively if it doesn't work out in left, I'd be fine with that too.
Well, yeah, from what I'm hearing, like, and again, this really
That's the thing.
truly
I
is
haven't
just
heard or seen
hearing,
anything about
right?
his defense.
Right. And the thing is, when we've gotten a chance to see Jonathan India in the outfield, it's only been like, well, he's been hit one ball or he's been hit two balls. Like, it's not a lot of a sample of how he looks in the outfield. I think Massey has gotten a little more opportunity in the outfield when he plays the outfield and has looked pretty good, based on just what I'm hearing, the impressions of the radio play-by-play guys. Obviously, I can't see that video either because that video doesn't exist, which is one of don't even get me on my soapbox about the notion that they can't televise friggin' spring training games. It's insane. And so, yeah, I'm curious to know what India would look like out there. But I think it looks like they might have a solution in either India or Massey playing a lot of left field. I think that's probably going to look okay. And so he'll end up either at second or left, and I'm not too worried about that. They do still need a contribution from another corner, so maybe, but they have a lot of options. It could be Melendez, could be Renfroe, could be Tyler Gentry, as you mentioned. They have some options in the corners. Could be Biggio if Biggio's found what he had back in the early part of his career, and so luckily India looks like classic India right now, and that's exactly what they brought him in to be. My strong performer for last week is a guy we talk about a lot on this podcast, and that is one Bobby Witt Jr. He actually started pretty slow to spring training this year, which is fine. I mean, nobody cares. I'd rather you end spring training hot than start it hot. But this last week, he started to pick it up. He went 4 for 8 with 1 double, 1 home run, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. The thing I really love to see is those 2 walks. I've seen a little bit better patience from him this last week. There was an at bat. This was probably in the first week where he just looked like he was ready to be patient early in the at bat, got up 3-0 and ended up striking out a 3-2 slider way outside the strike zone. And I was like, damn it, Bobby, stay patient, but he looked great this week. He looks like he's getting the power stroke back. Looks like he's finding his groove in terms of putting the bat on the ball and getting good power outcomes. And so they're going to need him. If we exist in a world where Bobby Witt Jr. is going to go from a 10.5 WAR season to an 8.5 WAR season, which is still a great season, guess what? That's going to hurt the Royals quite a bit because they're counting on him to be not just great, but among the greatest in the game because he carries so much of their offense, so much of their defense. And so hopefully he can be that level of great this year, stay healthy and all that sort of stuff. But it was a good week for him last week. Weak performers, Mike. These are the guys who maybe didn't shine through this week. Who's your weak performer for last week?
I'm going with Seth Lugo. He pitched again today, so we got 2 starts this week. 5 innings pitched. He gave up 9 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. And the thing that, watching the game today, the thing that I kind of noticed is he's still missing bats some. It's just when they're making contact right now, it's really hard contact. And I don't know if that's because it feels to me like he just hasn't quite tightened up his command like he did all last season. And I feel like he'll get to that place at some point in spring training because you're watching, you're going, ooh, that was a fantastic slider down and away exactly where he wanted it one pitch. And then the next pitch, you're like, didn't want that pitch anywhere near there. And the guy just drilled it. And so I think it's just a little more tightening up of his command that he's probably going to be fine. We know that he can give up some hard hits, but Kauffman Stadium swallows some of those. And I think over the long run, he's still going to be just fine. So I'm not worried about Seth Lugo or anything, but rough week for him as he tries to figure out where he needs to be and where he needs to get before his first start comes in the regular season.
Yes, I think Lugo ultimately will be fine, but I think it's interesting to note that he does always sort of walk a fine line because how much he relies on that 60, 70 grade command that he has. And so if it's not there, if he's struggling to find it, it's always going to be a difficult thing for him. He's not, I mean, despite the fact that he has 1,000 pitches, his stuff is not electric. He's not like, Cole Reagan's as in terms of his ability to spin and throw like really, really hard. And so, he's always the type of guy who, yes, his stuff, once it gets in place and once he's feeling better, it will be important, but he's going to have that top-notch command, which I'm sure will come as spring training gets going. This guy is a veteran. He knows what he needs to be ready to go for the season. My weak performer for this week is Cole Reagans, because despite his excellent stuff, he did not pitch overly well this week, mostly in the ones, he only had 1 start as far as I know. But in that 1 start, what he did this week, 4.1 innings pitched, 7. I don't think he did all that in 1 start. He must have had 2 starts this week. but he did get roughed up by the Cubs. As an overall stat line, he went 4.1 inning pitch, 7 earned runs, 9 hits, 2 home runs he gave up, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Again, not at all worried about Cole Reagans. It's Arizona, and offensive games happen. This is only like his second or third outing. He's going to be completely fine. No way for me to get too concerned about what he's doing.
Yeah, you and I watched him get rocked by the Colorado Rockies last year in spring training, and he did okay during the actual year. So
yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
You remember that? He didn't make it out of the first inning. They had to bring him back in for the second.
Yeah, we're sitting right behind home plate, and we're like, this is awesome. Reagan's going to come out and shove. The Rockies suck. Like, can't wait for him to just dominate. We were sending a bunch of content and everything, and then he just comes out, and they just stroke the shit out of him. They were taking him the opposite way the whole time, just crushing baseballs. So, yeah, I think he'll be fine. Mike, in a week that saw quite a bit of losing, but some decent performances, what's your theme for this week?
I went with a theme that's quite long here. You know, we like to do music lyrics or movie quotes for our themes. And my music lyric this week comes from the Avett Brothers, a song called, I think it's called A Flower in Manhattan. That's what it's called. It's basically about taking something out of its natural place. And in our case, I'm thinking of the Royals as they need to be, I'm already ready for them to be taken out of this artificial play box in Arizona and into the real show. So the quote is, so I left and let the flower be. And yesterday I saw the flower on cable TV, much prettier than here with me. And that's what I'm thinking.
Why aren't you singing it?
Because the guy's voice is much higher than mine is.
Oh.
And
shot. Here we go. 1,
2, 3, 4. No, so it's a great, like, hey, you need to pluck that thing out of there and take it to where it belongs, which is in Kauffman Stadium. And I'm ready for that to happen. And I'm ready for the changes that come when you start playing meaningful games and when you can start to see the real product. And we're going to start getting into that in spring training, even as we start to see more regulars play deeper into games, as you start to see pitchers get stretched out. I'm ready for all of that. And we can let the artificial kind of space of the Cactus League go away.
Yeah, it's weird because I think in the past years, I've been more comfortable with like just being in spring training. But now I'm like, let's go. It's only like a week and a half in and I'm already like, let's go. I'm ready for the regular season. Let's get beyond this. I'm ready to move on.
I'd say if they televised more of the games,
I know
I would be pumped because then I could watch. I'd be more into like, oh, well, I can watch Caglione when he gets in there. I can watch Gavin Cross at the end of games and things like that. But right now it's like, okay, once a week, maybe I get to see a game. That's no fun.
Yeah, that's rough. I'm going to give a shout out mine because I'm not a gutless coward like Mike. And this person has a much higher voice than I have, but I'm going to sing it anyway. From the lovely and talented Pat Benatar. Mike wanted to listen to this song yesterday. Mike and I went and played simulated golf at, what's that place called, Mike?
It's called X Golf in Leawood.
At X Golf in Leawood. And he was, for some reason...
Ran into fellow podcaster Kent Swanson while I was there. Did I say that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you did. We ran into Kent Swanson at Kansas City Sports Network. But for some reason, we started getting like an 80s kick going in the car on the way there. And Mike was like, play Love is a Battlefield by Pat Benatar. And so I took my quote this week from Love is a Battlefield by Pat Benatar. If you don't know that song, you're missing out, man.
If you don't know it, get ready to hear it.
Yeah, first off, get ready to hear it. And second off, go watch the music video because it's the best music video I've ever seen that pits dancing prostitutes against dancing pimps. You know, it's like, it stands at the top of that ladder. But the line is, we are young, heartache to heartache, we stand. No promises, no demands. Love is a battlefield. Boom. Yeah, so that was gorgeous. I know. I can't really hear it very well in my headphones, but I'm sure you guys are just creaming your jeans all over the place. But
keep it G rated.
That's pretty G. That's pretty G. Anyway, the idea behind this was that, like, no promises, no demands. Spring training reminds you that, like, the line between winning and losing in Major League Baseball is so thin that, like, we're hoping for another 86 win season or 90 win season or something like that, another playoff run. We're hoping that this team is better, and it looks like on paper it might be, but right here. There are no promises, right? Like there's no, there's nothing to sort of tell us that that's definitely going to happen. And even here in spring training, we can see that like, oh, look, the Rockies beat the Royals, like, or the Cubs beat the Royals 10-1 yesterday or something like that. It's just tiny, tiny margins. Love is a battlefield. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy. You already know that All In Physical Therapy gave our mother the strength to leg drop Hulk Hogan. It was a beautiful thing to see. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
Yes, and after doing the mildest of physical activity yesterday, I need some attention, Tommy. All right.
Yeah, I'm guessing those hips are barking, that side is barking,
hips and back.
Barking.
Oh yeah.
All In Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. But most importantly, they're in network for nearly all insurance providers.
At this point, if they're not in network for you, you should probably find better insurance, thus a different employer.
Yes, because they're a network for everybody. Yeah. If you're a high school athlete recovering from an injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com, or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. The Royals have a few familiar names in camp who may or may not make the opening day roster. Nick Prado, Drew Waters, Carlos Hernandez, guys like that. They are a handful of guys who have seemingly been around for a while, but who are currently on the outside looking in on the 26-man roster. This is interesting because the Royals will have some decisions to make with these guys. We're casting a wide net talking about these guys, so we're going to consider all players who are on the margins of the team and discuss what the team should do with them. To organize this, let's start with the guys who are out of options and can't be sent down due to service time. This includes Hunter Renfroe, Chris Stratton, Nelson Velasquez, and Nick Prado. Mike, what say you about the fate of those four players?
Well, let's go through this just kind of one by one. Starting with Hunter Renfroe, you and I have talked a lot about his lack of production last year, the contract that they gave him, things like that. For context, for those of you that don't know, in 2024, he had a 92 weighted runs created plus, so he was not even an average hitter in Major League Baseball, and he was a negative defensively, -7 outs above average. The Royals owe him $6.5 million, but I still think that's worth a DFA, and that's not to say that that's what's going to happen. I think that's what should happen, and I say that going, if you DFA him, okay, let's put it this way. The only value he's going to be able to give you at this point in his career, because he's 34 years old, I believe, is some sort of platoon or rotational guy in right, okay? Or maybe at DH, rotational at DH. What does he give you above another guy who can do that on your team? To me, it's nothing, right? So I would choose to go with a guy like Kevin Biggio and put him in that situation because I feel like he's going to provide at least a little bit more on-base value than what Hunter Renfroe will. And he's probably going to play a better right field than what Hunter Renfroe will. He's at least going to be able to get to more balls than what Hunter Renfroe will be able to. So I would probably, I think as far as what they should do, DFA for Hunter Renfroe. What do you think?
I'm going to ask you a question. Like, I assume you choose DFA, and for those of you who don't know, DFA means designate for assignment, and so that would just essentially mean like
you're cutting.
They make him available. You're cutting him. They make him available to anybody else, and if he's has so much service time that he could choose not to accept the assignment down to AAA and just become a free agent if he wanted to. And so,
which is what I would assume he would do.
I assume he would do that as well. They would just be cutting him essentially. And so I assume you're saying this because you don't think they could get anything in trade for him.
No, I think the contract is prohibitive in trade because I don't think, why would you trade for a Hunter Renfroe for, at $6.5 million if when you could go get anything that he's going to give you in free agency for less than that. Or most teams are going to have what he's going to give you in the minors. There's just not any value to trading him, I don't think. And so
I chose trade because I think they could get like long shot lottery pick for him. Yeah, if they ate some of the salary,
if they're eating the salary.
Like
but
I think they could eat $2.5 million off this, and some team will take a flyer on him. like being a little bit more productive next year, and maybe they'll try and DH him a lot and then just play him in the outfield when they feel like they need to and stuff like that. Like this will be a White Sox kind of team, like not a team that's any good would be playing Hunter Renfroe, but at the same time, $4 million they would have to pay him, and then maybe give up just a long shot lottery ticket or somebody who is in a similar position with them, right? Which is like, you know, a prospect who is now out of options but has never done anything, and stuff like that. Like I think there's a chance the Royals could do something like that. It's pretty low. There's a good chance DFA might be the right option, but we'll see on that front.
Now we're going on to Chris Stratton here, another person who the Royals signed for not necessarily big money last year, but decent money for a reliever. He's 34 years old. He doesn't really offer anything special, right? He's not like, oh, he's really great at getting these guys out, or he's got an elite pitch or anything like that, elite velocity, nothing like that. And I think in a normal year, you would say, okay, keep him because, bullpen pitching is volatile. He had a good season 2 years ago and a solid one 3 years ago. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to flash again after maybe a healthy offseason, and you get some value out of him early and then trade him halfway through the season. The problem with this is the Royals have so many guys that are out of options in their bullpen. You're talking about Hernandez and Long are both out of options in their bullpen. Chris Stratton also doesn't. You can't just option him down to AAA. His service time is too long, and you're not going to get rid of Hunter Harvey or any of the guys at the back end. So there really isn't an option for keeping him unless you really think he can help, and that's why I have a DFA. I'm probably designating him for assignment as well. Also, I don't think you're going to get anything for Chris Stratton in trade. So, I think the Royals would have to essentially cut him.
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't think Stratton could actually fetch anything in trade either. I think because of the volatility of relievers, there are a lot of people who would just not be super keen on taking him anyway because he had such a down year last year, and he's 34, right? And so there's no like great track record of 34-year-olds all of a sudden, recovering from a really bad year in my mind. And so, especially since it doesn't seem like any of that was really tied to anything that's injury related, right? Like I know he had a quote unquote injury at the end of the season, but I don't know that what was happening for the first 5 months of the season. Like, and so I don't think anybody's coming knocking down the door to take Chris Stratton. Yeah, that'll cost them what does he make, like $4 million a year?
I can't remember. That sounds a little high, but yeah,
that might be a little high. I can't remember what his number is. And honestly, you're right. It might make sense to keep Stratton if you could do something like that, if they didn't have so many guys who are out of options vying for bullpen positions. And so in my mind, you're definitely not like getting rid of a Sam Long to keep Chris Stratton. That makes
you're not going to, and you're not going to option somebody like Zerpa who might have one more. You're not going to do that because he's markedly better than, he gives you something in your bullpen.
Right. Inventory means something, but it doesn't mean like so much that you're like, we're going to play a Chris Stratton when we have Angel Zerpa in the bullpen. Like that makes no sense whatsoever. And so, I just don't see a lot of room on this roster for Stratton. Who knows, maybe injuries happen or something and it starts looking more attractive to keep him. But right now, DFA sounds right on the money to me.
Next up, we're going to talk Nelson Velasquez, a guy that I was really high on at one point. I think because of the power potential of Nelson Velasquez, because the age is still relatively young. I think he's 28, if I'm not mistaken. I think you might have a chance to trade him. I don't think you're going to get a lot in return because he's never proven it for a long period of time at the major league level. But I think someone still might be able to take a flyer on him for some sort of lower level lottery ticket, maybe a lower level relief prospect. I think you get some value. And remember, there's even value if he's not going to play for the Royals. There's even value in trading him for cash. I mean, I know that's not what you want out of everything, but remember, you gave up Jose Cuas for him, so it's not like you're losing a ton of value by not turning Nelson Velasquez into an everyday major leaguer. So I think you try and seek out a trade for him to see if you can't get some sort of thing in return that might help you down the road.
Yes, if somebody said to me like, what's a trade that's definitely going to be made before the end of spring training and I have to pick something, I would be Nelson Velasquez because he doesn't have options. And I don't think he's going to make the team. And so they're going to have to do something with him. And I do think because of what he did in 2023, that short stretch of big time success that he had in Major League Baseball, it will be attractive to some team out there to be like, hey, let's take, especially teams like, the White Sox or the Rockies or, teams that are just desperately looking for talent anywhere they can get it. They'll take a chance on a guy like a Velasquez if they're getting him for little enough, and it'll be little enough because they'll be asking for like cash or for a long shot lottery ticket. Like they'll take a chance that they can unlock a better approach, that they can unlock more consistent contact from Velasquez, and ultimately unlock that power. And hopefully he can sort of produce for them. The weird thing about Velasquez to the Royals is he kind of just got here at a weird time to this team when he had already used up a couple of his options, even though he's pretty young. And then it's like, well, we only have like a year and a half to ensure that he can be an everyday player, and we haven't made it work in that year and a half, and so we might have to move on.
Lastly here, Nick Pratto, a first-round pick, a guy that had a lot of promise for the Royals, a guy who's been a high prospect for them for a while. He is what you would call a change of scenery candidate. He probably needs another organization to go to work with him, to coach him, and to give him a better opportunity than what the Royals will be able to provide him. And so earlier you mentioned, well, maybe you're looking for a guy who's, a prospect who just needs to change the scenery for Hunter Renfroe. That's what we need for Nick Pratto in a trade. We need to trade Nick Pratto for another prospect that's similar to him. Maybe a prospect who hasn't done it with the limited opportunities they've gotten in Major League Baseball. They need a change of scenery. They need a new organization. We have Nick Pratto. You have that guy. Let's just swap them and see if you need somebody around the first base, maybe ours might be a corner outfield guy who needs another opportunity, a new look, some new coaching in his ear. And I'd be completely okay with that to give both Nick Pratto, because I want good things for him as well, to give him a real opportunity at Major League Baseball and to possibly fill a need that the Royals might have moving forward as well.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about guys like Velasquez and Pratto. I agree with you. I think trading Pratto makes the most sense, and I think there'd be a decent enough market for him that you could get something in return. I think that trading them makes the most sense in part for them too. Like they need to hear a different voice when it comes to developing as hitters. And maybe that voice is the one that unlocks it for them. We've seen guys take a while. Brent Rooker took a while to become an effective major league hitter. Jose, or who was the dude? He played for the Royals, but he also then played for the Blue Jays.
Bautista.
Didn't really get Jose Bautista. He took a long time to sort of become the effective hitter that he was. And
he was like MVP level hitter at one point.
Right. Even a hitter that Nelson Velasquez has often been compared to, Nelson Cruz, really didn't take off as a hitter until later in his career as well. And so sometimes you just need a different sort of perspective, a different voice, a different idea about how you should be hitting. And then you can sort of have that type of success that it was sort of always earmarked that you would have. Pratto has no pathway to Major League Baseball in the Royals system. They're playing him in right field now just to be like, well, maybe if he works out in the corners, he can play in the corners for us. But it's a last ditch effort. It's not like a thing that they're really hoping for. And so I think similar to the Kyle Wright and Jackson Kowar thing last year, they're going to try and find a way to move him to somewhere and get something in return. Mike, there are a number of other marginal guys, though, who have options. That list includes Nick Lofton, Tyler Gentry, Drew Waters, John Rave, Joey Weimer, Steven Cruz, and Jonathan Bolin. What do you think the fate of each of these guys will be?
I think all of them get sent to Omaha. And I know we've seen Lofton have some good plate appearances. We've seen Tyler Gentry hit the ball pretty well. My one thought is if Blanco is not able to come back from the heel injury or the Achilles injury that he's got, then maybe Lofton sneaks on the 26 man if they feel like he can provide some help in a corner outfield.
And if this sore wrist that Lofton got scratched from the lineup today is not anything more than that.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was a thing. I didn't know.
Yeah, he got scratched from the lineup today with a sore right wrist, I think.
Okay, and so yeah, if he's healthy, if Blanco isn't and isn't able to come back, I could maybe see that being his path onto the 26 man. But the rest of them, I think they go down because they still have options. I liked what Bolin did today in his one inning. I thought he looked pretty good. Steven Cruz has looked good at times in this spring, although he struggled a little bit with command today when he was out there. But the rest of these guys, I think they kind of have to go down. John Rave has had some good at-bats. Drew Waters is still the player that Drew Waters has always been. And so, yeah, I think they're all going down, but I do expect to see Lofton possibly at some point, Steven Cruz at some point, maybe Jonathan Bolin at some point this year.
Somehow I've convinced myself that Nick Lofton is going to make the team, right? And
way to go.
I know. Good job, me. But anyway.
That's tough. So you're saying he's going to make the team and Castro and Biggio?
No, I don't think Castro is. I think it'll be Lofton and I think Lofton and Biggio as your sort of two
Aren't
bench
they
guys
both right-handed?
who aren't the catcher. Nope, they're one's right-handed, one's left.
Biggio's left-handed? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was right-handed.
Yeah. And so that's the only thing that distinguishes them. And I made this point in the Substack earlier today is that like profile-wise, they're basically the same player because they don't play the premium defensive positions, but they basically play all the other positions. And so you sort of have that similar utility value in both of them, except one is right-handed and one is left-handed. And so, I can convince myself anyway that a bench of Fermin, Lofton, Biggio, and someone who can play center field is like the correct bench for the Royals, right? But I may also, in my mind, see them making a trade if it looks, and if it took one of Waters, Rave, Weimer, or Bolin to seal the deal, I'd do it, right? Like if they have something they need, and I think the thing that they might need is somebody that they think can definitely be a backup in center field, and they're not happy with Weimer and what he's looked like this spring, then I'd be happy to trade Waters, Rave, Weimer, Bolin to get that trade going, and some of these other guys we've talked about like Prado or Velasquez, and get in one of those guys. Cruz, I would keep as bullpen depth in AAA, and I wouldn't be mad if he actually made the 26-man roster. And so Cruz is the only one who I would not trade. Lofton, I don't think I would trade either unless that trade is for something significant. But I think that any of those other guys, Waters, Ray, Weimer, or Bolin, could be a part of a trade as spring training goes on.
And another guy that I don't think we've talked about, Carlos Hernandez, is also out of options.
Yes.
He's got experience in bullpen. He's got a live arm. He might be somebody you could look to trade to a very weak bullpen to get their minor league guy that can be our fifth outfielder / center field backup.
Yes,
although they played Garcia out there today.
They did. So, and did you see how he looked?
Did not look great.
Did not look great. Did not look great. Mike, every year we see some of these spring training trades happen that are a product of needing to move guys off the roster. Remember the Kowar and Kyle Wright trade. If the Royals end up making some of those deals, what do you anticipate them targeting in return?
Well, other than outside that backup center fielder, I think pitching probably, I don't think any of these guys are going to bring back somebody that's going to make the 26-man unless you're thinking of like a combination of maybe a couple guys to get a depth center fielder. But I think they're going to focus on pitching because I think they believe in their ability to develop pitching, especially guys that are maybe those kind of 4A pitchers, or they've been a starter for a long time. We can turn them into a reliever kind of a thing. And so I think that they'll be targeting pitching if they do move on from these guys. But that's more of a function of what they believe is the best part of their development system, which is the pitching side.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I could see pitching. And then again, I could see a dependable bench outfielder because I don't know that Weimer, however you pronounce it, has shown enough in spring training at this point. And again, there's still 3 weeks left, so still plenty of time for him to do this, to show that they want him in part of a rotation in center field with Isbell or anything like that. And I don't know that they're willing to sort of rely on him to get that many plate appearances. And so they may be like, hey, we're in the market for sort of someone who can play center field reliably and maybe give us a decent plate appearance here or there, and they might find a trade for something like that. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Gocksher of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Gocksher of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect house fast. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
I'm actually quite surprised Marc didn't smack me in the head with a golf club yesterday.
I came this close like 2 or 3 times. Eric does long-term rentals for the snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will find the perfect spot fast. You want to spend your days shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows how to avoid my swing path. It's a tough one because I have a very Jim Furyk-like swing, Find Eric online at ericoxer.com if you can figure out how to spell his name. It's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he once saved the life of a drowning dolphin.
This week, the Royals will have games against the Rangers, Mariners, Cubs, Angels, Rangers again, Giants, and Brewers. Though there is an off day in there, I think on Tuesday, maybe. Saturday will be a split squad against the Rangers and Giants, so that's where the off day comes in. Mike, what are you hoping to see from the boys in blue this week?
Well, I really want to see the starting rotation start to tighten it up a little bit. They're going to be stretching it out a little bit more. That should be going 3 or 4 innings, depending on which start this is for them. I'll be looking specifically at MJ Melendez still. Where's that other guy we can count on a corner outfield that isn't Jonathan India or Michael Massey, perhaps playing in left. So I'm really looking for that, looking to tighten up the starting rotation, and then looking to see some guys who maybe struggled this week not continue that next week.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to be looking at those starters as well. I think that's important. I'm going to be looking to see if they can continue the patient plate appearances that we've seen so far. Do they continue to take walks? Do they continue to get on base and create offensive opportunities? That's something I'm definitely looking for. I'm also just paying attention to some of those guys like John Rave, like Peyton Wilson. For some reason, I watch a lot. I always want the spring training moment to let me get another look at these sort of guys in the upper minors who have maybe been overlooked a little bit, and let me say oh, should I reconsider this guy as a player, as a prospect, and that sort of thing. So I'll be looking at those guys as well. Tyler Gentry is another one of those. And so I'll be interested to just take a look at those guys. Mike, are there any particular players you want to keep an eye on, or you think it'll be important to keep an eye on this week?
Yeah, here's the 4 that I came up with. MJ Melendez, because I think kind of crucial. He's probably the number 1 leading candidate to still help us in a corner. But boy, you're still seeing some of the same problems. His second at bat today, I think it was his second at bat, strikes out on 3 pitches, the last one being a
high fastball.
Very good. Still hasn't shown the ability to hit that pitch or really avoid it either. And then, so those are not good. Although he has gotten some hits, he has hit a home run. Like, the problem is I didn't get to watch any of those at bats, and so I don't really know. Okay, was that against a guy that's going to be in the major leagues, or was that against some nobody, some minor league guy? And secondly, did he challenge the weaknesses of MJ Melendez, or did he just, do what he was doing? So still interested to see what Melendez can bring. I want to see Bubic's next start, how that goes. He's the, front runner for that 5th spot. So that'll be interesting to me. Maikel Garcia. So many things I want to see from Maikel Garcia. We've talked about him pulling the ball. Still hasn't done that.
I'll tell you about a dude who pissed me off something fierce today, and that was Maikel Garcia. And here's why. His first plate appearance, he gets up 1-0. He gets a pitch on the outside third. Might have been a strike. He swings at it, fouls it off. Shouldn't have swung at it, but he did. Why? Why swing at that pitch 1-0? What's the most you can do with that? Slap a single through the right side? It's 1-0. You're ahead in the count. What are you doing? He gets up 2-1, does the exact same damn thing, right? He ends up getting a hit in the at-bat. It was like a soft single through the center, but this is the type of shit that will keep him from ever producing any sort of decent power outcomes, because he's not letting the pitcher get in a situation where he has to throw him middle in and looking middle in. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. And then the one he did pull was like a chopper that was basically an error on the third baseman. So I want to see that. Yes, that stuff offensively. Is he able to be a little bit more selective and pull the ball? But also, if they continue to play him in center or other places he's not so used to, how does he develop and look there? And then this one was kind of the sneaky one. Kevin Biggio. I want to keep seeing what I'm seeing from you, Kevin Biggio. A little bit more aggressive, still able to take walks, but a little bit more aggressive, and tapping into that power that you have, that you were able to show earlier in your career. And then I'd like to see what he can do defensively at some of those other positions other than second base.
Yeah, that's a good list. I think if anybody wants to sort of keep their eyes on those players, that'd be a good group to watch. I'm going to keep my eye on Tyler Gentry, because I don't think he's gotten as many plate appearances in the last few games. I don't know. There's like a bug going around Royal spring training, and so some guys may be sitting and getting less playing time as they sort of deal with illness too. So I want to see Tyler Gentry. I want to keep my eyes on Kris Bubic as well, and see hey, do I keep seeing the great stuff that we've seen from him? I mean, He's been great so far. I want to take a look at Joey Weimer. I want to see what those plate appearances look like. Is he going to be able to be relied on as their backup center fielder? Those are the three that I'm really paying close attention to at this point. And then I want to see Jonathan India and Michael Massey play in the outfield because, still haven't gotten a good look at either of those. There's still, a lot of time left to spring training to decide who's going to be the best fit defensively out there. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just About Outside segment. This is some people's favorite segment, believe it or not. It's wild to me. Wild. Anyway, Mike, what has been going on in your life outside of baseball for the last week?
Well, lots of things, just celebrated a birthday with a good friend of ours, but had a good time doing that. Brought the old some of the high school gang back together. But the thing that happened to me on Friday was extremely interesting. We did some professional development stuff through my school district, and that involved us going to a place I'd never been before, history teacher, never been there, Kansas City Museum. Fantastic. This is my recommendation for all of you to go visit the Kansas City Museum. One,
it is wonderful.
It's free, okay? They do, ask for a donation of whatever you want to give there at the door, but it's free if you just want to go in and walk around. And it's a great look at not just the history of the city, but the art in there is unbelievable. Like, it's so good. They've done such a great job. It's in an old mansion in Northeast that was the home of a prominent person in Kansas City, a lumber baron in Kansas City. And it's really great. I mean, it's great. The guy that gave us the tour, his name was Glenn. So smart. Did such a great job. You can just go there and play pool. Did you know that?
I did
in the basement.
I have done that. I went there a while back for this history of Kansas City lunch where the chef sort of walked you through some of the culinary traditions of Kansas City in a lunch that you sat down and did. My partner and I did that a while back. And then afterwards you were free to sort of wander around the museum and go do whatever. We went downstairs to where that pool room is and we shot some pool while we were down there.
Yeah. And they have so many things. They've got a bar down there. They've got they do lectures and they do things like events and things like that. Like you were talking about, it's just such a great place. I'll only hit the place with one negative, that it's not easy to park there. There is no actual parking. You have to park on the street, but it was such a great place. And I've been to, I'm a history teacher. I've been to tons and tons and tons of museums. And all I could keep thinking as I walked through there was, I'm so grateful that Kansas City has a place to tell its story as a city. And got to go back. We had to go through way too quick because we had other stuff we were doing. So all I could, when we left, I just kept saying, well, I'm definitely going back there. So the Kansas City Museum, go check it out. It is fantastic.
Yes. Highly recommended myself as well. I've been there that one time and it was an excellent experience. I am talking about the funniest commercial ever made. I saw it earlier in the week and I keep getting ads for it. I don't know why. Every time I go to YouTube, this ad pops up. And the subject matter, it's not intentionally funny. It's not meant to be funny, but it watches like an SNL skit, honestly. It watches like one of their fake commercials. It's for I'm going to have a hard time saying it. It is for the Veil Smart Toilet by Kohler, right? Now, a smart toilet is a funny concept unto itself, right? But imagine somebody does.
Why does everything have to be smart?
I don't know. I'm doing fine with my dumb toilets, but this smart toilet is funny unto itself. But imagine somebody pitched you an idea for a smart toilet commercial where they're like, think of it like those perfume ads with veils and people being really earnest and serious about the romance.
The ones Johnny Depp is in.
Toilet. Yes, it is like those. It is exactly or Natalie Portman. It is exactly like those Dior perfume commercials. It's just like those. Super earnest, super whatever. But then the sort of reveal is Veil Smart Toilet. What the hell is going on?
This thing will shoot water up your butt.
It is so funny. Go to YouTube and look up Veil. That's VEIL Smart Toilet commercial from Kohler, and just spend some time laughing at this thing because it is so funny. It's like we have come full circle and are now just parodies of our own reality. It's great. It is so great.
You know what's terrible though? I can go watch this thing. It's never going to be as funny as what is now in my brain.
Oh yeah, it probably won't but honestly, it will be way closer to what's in your brain than you realize. Like,
I guess,
the thought to me, because when I see something like this, I think to myself, hey, somebody came with this idea.
The pitch meeting had to be fantastic.
And then somebody was like, yeah, let's do that. And then 10 other people had to say yes. And then they had to shoot it. And somebody had to be like, yeah, we're going to run with this. This is great. This is great. This looks great. No, it is not. It's a travesty. It's an abomination. But I love it so much because it's hilarious. So yes, if you need a laugh this week, go look up a Vail Smart Toilet commercial and spend a few moments just laughing at reality. It's pretty great. Thank you so much for joining us here on Royals Weekly presented by Bet Online. We love having these episodes with you. Make sure to subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack if you would like to get more episodes this week. We'll be out on Thursday with an episode for our Substack subscribers. We'll be back next Monday with another regular scheduled episode. Until then, be good to each other.
Go Royals.